Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is officially Sunday. So, welcome again to my page. We go live every Sunday. We used to go live at 5 p.m., but now we are going live at 7 p.m. starting this week. So, that'll be our new time for those who are coming for the first time. Welcome. And for those who are here with me again, welcome again. So, I am Natalie. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have a history of working with individuals who are on the spectrum, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities. I've worked in group homes. I've worked with the homeless population, co-occurring disorders, substance use. And then my last act was as a clinician in the Child Guidance and Family Center. Based in Connecticut, working with families with children as young as 3, as old as 19, with the primary focus of trauma. So that is my professional titles. And then some of my personal titles would be I am a sister, a friend, a daughter, an aunt, a cousin, a follower of Jesus, and a citizen of heaven. So those are all of my personal and professional titles. And I'll say welcome again. So last week during our live, we had talked about relationships and it being a reflection of your self-worth. That was one of the questions I asked towards the end of the live from last week. So I wanted to take some time this week just to go through that and just be able to expand on the topic. So like today, the name of the live is Your Relationships Are a Reflection of Your Self-Worth, what your relationship says about how you see yourself. So as a parent, let's take a look at some of your relationships. So if you were to take a look at some of the relationships that you are in right now, think about what you see. So for you as parents, oftentimes you are, especially when it comes to your teen, you are giving your teen everything. Oftentimes you either fall in two categories. You might be the parent where you're giving your teen everything that you feel like you owe your children all that you have. And then for some parents, you might not be giving enough just because you're just tapped out because of your own challenges. Maybe there's multiple kids in the home, but there could be two sides of the coin. Either you are giving everything that you have and you give every last drop, or maybe we're not giving enough just because of the way life is set up currently. And both of those are unhealthy, I would say, and they also encourage the cycle of dysregulation in your parenting style. So we had talked about dysregulation or a dysregulated parent and what that looks like probably a couple of weeks ago. So if you didn't get to see that post, I would suggest you go to my Instagram, go to my YouTube, go to my TikTok, and you'll see the live. You'll see some of the posts throughout the week that had explained what that looks like. But thinking about some of these relationships that you have with your teen, right? Your teen is already tenacious and with a capital T. So by the way you parent could be adding more fuel to the fire. So in examining your relationships, I have a couple of questions for you. Are you a giver? So that might mean that you are always giving everything you have. You are very generous. And on the flip side of that, sometimes because you might be so generous, you also feel like unappreciative, like people are taking all that you got and they're not reciprocating anything back. So are you someone who's giving every last drop where you have nothing left for yourself? That might look like what it is to be a giver on your end if we're doing it in the unhealthy way. The other option would be, are you a taker? Are you someone who lets people pour into you? You're acting, we'll say you're on the needier side where people are always giving to you and you're always taking from other people. You're always asking for this or asking for that. Is that what you look like in terms of relationships? So I'm a person who loves analogies. So the analogy that I would give for this example would be like a hammer and a nail. The hammer is the one who's the giver. The nail is the taker. So are you the hammer where you're always giving everyone everything you got while you are causing damage to yourself and you don't even realize because you're just giving and pouring everything that you have into your relationships? Or are you the nail? Are you the one who's always receiving and making sure that you are in the correct spot while you're not reciprocating to anyone else? You're just taking what you're being given. So if we look at those way, are you the hammer or are you the nail? So if you think about some of the relationships that you have right now, what percentage of your relationships are reciprocal? Are any of them reciprocal, or do you feel like you are toting the line on either end? Because I know last week during the live we had talked about like, are your relationships a reflection of your self-worth? So for someone who would be, I would say the way giving so much where it's on the unhealthy end is where you're no longer joyfully giving. You might be feeling like you're unappreciated. You might be feeling like you keep giving, 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 and no one's reciprocating anything back. That's when you know that you are doing too much, probably. Um, Oftentimes, at least from what I've in my clinical work with others, right? I often see that the giver can know when they're giving too much. A taker, on the other hand, they don't know when they're taking. They don't always know when they're taking because people are always pointing to them. I don't think, at least from what I've seen in terms of my clinical work, they don't always know that they're taking unless someone actually puts it out to them. So if we think about some of those roles and the relationships that you have in your life right now, what percentages of them are reciprocal? So if I were to take a look at some of my relationships right now, I would say mm, I want to say 40-60 or 50-50 giving and taking, where they are reciprocal. So I think there are, because of the work that I do naturally, because of who I am naturally, I am a person who is a giver. I'm a giver, and I'm a generous giver. And the boundary line with that would be that there I have a propensity, I have a inclination to give too much where I'm not leaving so much for myself. And sometimes I can recognize, oftentimes I'll recognize when I'm getting to the point where, okay, I'm doing too much. And that's usually after the fact I've already done too much. And then I'm like, okay, Natalie, you got to reel it in. So I guess thinking about some of your relationships that you guys have with yourself, with people in general, are you the giver or the taker? And then thinking about when it comes to your self worth, right? How you value yourself. Do you give anything back to yourself? Are you someone who might be in these relationships? Are you quick to encourage them? Are you quick to do something for them? Are you quick to give them your time and your energy and all these other things? And when it comes to you looking at yourself, do you do the same with yourself, or are you easier? You're able to do that easier for other people than you are with yourself? And that's what I mean does is are your relationships a reflection of your self-worth? So sometimes we have relationships that are unbalanced where we do more for other people than we do with ourselves. That shows what your self looks like. Worth is that you value other people more than you might do yourself. And that's oftentimes what it looks like when you're doing and you're giving so much. Um, and maybe you have a life that there's people who are demanding a lot from you, right? And in that case, then I would ask you to reevaluate. Yes, people can ask a lot of you, but also healthy boundaries means that sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes saying yes to someone who you want to give to, but you already been giving to, maybe they're taking you out of your capacity level. And if that's the case, then you probably need to reel it back in. You probably need to reel it back in just a tad bit, just for your own safety is what I'd say. And when I think about with working with teens and you as a parent, oftentimes you are giving all that you have to your teen, and then things become unbalanced, things become unmanageable. Now we're getting angry or upset. And when we're giving so much to the teen, and it almost looks like you are putting your full identity in the teen, and when you do that, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. You are a parent, yes, but that is not the first thing that you are. You are yourself before you're a parent. And that's something I used to always say to the parents that I worked with when I was working at the clinic, that you are yourself before you're a parent. In order for you to be able to parent well, parent in a full capacity, parent in a way that is helpful to you and your team, would mean that you need to put yourself first sometimes. You need to put yourself first. And that's something we talked about last week when I said, bump them kids you first. Because if you don't correct yourself, if you aren't feeling well, you're not going to be able to parent from a place of safety. You're going to parent in a way that's going to be aggressive. You're going to parent in a way that is going to hurt the person's feelings that you're speaking to, but also your own feelings, because you're probably, after you said something maybe mean on occasion because you were just really hyped up that day, you came back home or you settled down and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. And the thing about that is, I even think about oftentimes when these moments happen where there was a big blow up between the teen and the parent, oftentimes there's no apology. Not any direct apology, anyway, not from the parent and not from the teen. It's never like hey, I'm sorry for doing this. It's more like hey, you want to plate of food? Oh, hey, you want this? Hey, I got you something, versus saying, I'm sorry. And yes, getting someone nice is a good way to apologize, but also you need to say the words. You need to say the words. And thinking about apologies, maybe you owe yourself an apology. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for not implementing any boundaries. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for giving up yourself too much where it took you out of your capacity level. And for those of you who are taking, who are on the taker end, where you are always grabbing from others, maybe you're even on the needy end when it comes to your teen, like you want your teen to be able to take care of you, even though you're the adult. Even in that stance, that things are unbalanced. And then if we were to look outside of your teen and think about your relationship with your friends, your relationship with your coworkers, your relationships with your spouse or your partner or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or your relationships with your boss, what do those kind of relationships look like? Are they healthy? And if they are healthy, great. And if they're not healthy, then what does that look like? What does that look like for them to not be healthy? Um, is there something that you notice? Is there a theme that occurs in these relationships that you're noticing for yourself? Like if I were to think about some of my relationships right now, I do have a healthy amount of relationships that are reciprocal, where I feel like I am giving and taking. I give, and I'm also being restored from the friendships that I have. And there's friendships just because of the nature of things, because I do work at a clinic in a supervisory role. So a lot of that role is giving, and it's giving, and it's giving, and it's giving, and it's giving. And sometimes, like I said earlier, is that I can have an inclination to give too much where it is drowning me out. And then, which is why we had talked about evaluating, we talked about management, we talked about implementing some coping skills so that we don't get to the point where we are doing so much where things become unmanageable. When things start to feel unmanageable, when we feel like we can't recognize ourselves, when we feel like we are not doing the things that we needed to do, or we're declining in our health in some sort of area, that's a time to reevaluate things and look at some of the things that you've done, look at some of the relationships that you have. Are you pouring too much in one? Are you taking too much in the other? Are you feeling on the needy end? Are you are you doing things that are not like yourself? Right? Your relationships with others will be a very good indicator of where you stand with yourself. And then if I think about it this way, in terms of another way to look at it would be in your relationships with some of your family, with some of your friends, with some of your coworkers, are you someone who's quick to criticize? Are you someone who's quick to pass judgment? Are you someone who has a lot of words for everyone? And if you are someone who does that, then I would say then you probably also do that with yourself, where you might be quick to criticize. Maybe you're setting yourself at a standard. Maybe you set up a standard that is higher than you can actually achieve. Maybe you are, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Other than setting a standard higher than you wanted to achieve, but I guess I think about, are you encouraging yourself? You're probably not. You're probably having a hard time meeting your own standards or set of things. But some of those things would be a reflection of your self worth, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm sure, like, oftentimes when these things happen, when things become unmanageable, it wasn't intentional. Sometimes it could be. Sometimes we do things on purpose because there are times where people might just self destruct just because of the state of things, just because they're not used to things going well, and that's a separate issue. But also, it's just a reflection of how you might treat yourself. So then I urge you for this week to take a look at your relationships. What are the themes that you notice? And maybe even journal about it. I know we talked about coping skills before. Journaling is a good one for me, so I'm hoping that journaling would also work with you. Maybe if you don't want to journal, I used to encourage some of my clients to do voice notes. So instead of journaling, they would send themselves or record a voice note that they can later listen to. Um, on the iPhone, there is a talk to text feature, so you could do that. Now, if you do that, I encourage you to enunciate, because sometimes Apple, some of the words be not the correct words. I would say definitely give it a read after you have done the audio to text. And then just thinking about that, I think about that we can't change anything if we don't know what's happening. We can't change anything if we don't identify, if we don't look at it, if we don't name it, right? There was a saying that used to go that you have to name it to tame it, right? So if in that case, that if you don't know if there's any challenges in your relationship, you don't know how you're treating yourself, this would be a good week to look at that. And then we can touch base again later this week in terms of what you found out. Um, what you found out. But I think that is all I have for you guys today. I don't know if anyone has any questions. So I'm going to look to see if anyone has any questions. And see if anyone has any questions. I'm going to check the chat box real quick. And then if no one has any questions, then we can end it for today. And I will see you guys. Ah, hi Tiffany. Thanks for joining and for sharing that you are a giver. So no, I'm on the same end, so I can see why you feel that way. Um, I am on the same end, so hopefully something I shared worked for you in terms of looking at some of your relationships this week and seeing where that lies for you. But if that's all that I see in the chat box, I am going to end it for today. I'm going to ask you all once again to share my page with other parents that you know. It's Raising Teens with Natalie on all platforms, so TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We go live every Sunday, now at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because I am in Connecticut. So until further notice, I will see you guys the next time. Have a blessed night.